You're watching the Double X Factor, and I'm now in the office of our guest this week, and she is Madhavi Lal, the head for HR at Standard Chartered Bank in India and South Asia. Madhavi, it's lovely to have you on this show. You saw that report we have, the report. How much will your work be different in this area of dealing with sexual harassment in the workplace as a result of that bill becoming law, Madhavi?
Fortunately for us, we've had the sexual harassment policy in place for many years now.
Right.
So nothing is really going to change for us.
Which is what most companies are saying. But
Right.
Will there be a little more, rules to follow and operationally comply with? I mean, does your work increase, even though in principle you may be, already doing what the bill would require you to do once it becomes law?
Well, I can't say the work will increase, but I think what we will now do is we will communicate more and more, saying that it is now a national bill, it covers the unorganized sector. So, I kind of re-emphasize that this is an important part, in the legal system. So that's really what, will change for us. Otherwise, not really, nothing much.
If you look at some aspects of the bill, which says that, for instance, companies will have to put in the number of complaints and redressal in your annual report. That's not something you were doing earlier, were you?
Not really. We were not required to do that.
Yeah, that's
but
what.
Reporting definitely is not an issue for us, because today we do report this to the team every year. So it's just a matter of now putting it in the annual report. So we don't see really additional workload that's going to come to us, on account of this. Personally, I think it's a great thing to happen. I think women need to feel safe at their workplace. So it's good to see that this has been now kind of made legal, and hopefully that will all sort of be executed and implemented well.
What are some of the broad proofs that you feel are good, and what are some that you think need a little bit more work?
Frankly, I'm very pleased that this move has happened, because obviously extending this to the unorganized sector is really welcome. But I think the challenge will be in the execution and the implementation, and covering organizations with less than 10 women employees. How does the government plan to do that? Are they going to communicate the policies to the women? I mean, for example, bank, we struggled a bit because we have people across the geography of the country, and we sort of translated this into many languages to ensure that women understand this policy. So is the government planning to do that? How are they planning to communicate this? How are they planning to ensure that this is happening? People are seeking redressal. That's going to be a big challenge.
But the fact that they have a penalty now for non-compliance, or 50,000 rupees for non-compliance, in having that internal complaints committee or a local complaints committee when the number of women are less than 10, number of employees are less than 10. So these are new things, isn't it?
They are new things, and they're very welcome, because 50,000 rupee fine is definitely will make companies comply. But again, who will administer that this is happening? That's the question really.
But what has your experience been over your work here in the HR practice? You've done 10 years at Standard Chartered Bank. Before that, you had ABN AMRO, you had Hewlett Packard and Colgate-Palmolive that you worked at. So different sectors. What has your experience been where it comes to how women are, how much women are aware of the fact that they do have a right to redressal, and how much they exercise this right?
I guess when I started, women not aware that they could actually go and seek redressal. But I think the last 5-6 years things have changed. I think post the Vishaka a case that came up. So I think women are aware, and I think companies now are trying to prevent sexual harassment at workplace. So for example, we roll out communications almost like every quarter, saying that this policy is there, please seek guidance or support if you face problems. And we've actually got this policy open for both genders. I mean, the harassment can apply to both genders really. So that I think women are becoming aware, but I think there is more stuff to be done there.
These numbers that you report, has there been an increase in the years as you've been seeing it?
I think we had a large number of cases coming out in 2008. In 9 the numbers dropped, and this year the number has dropped a bit. If I remember correctly, 2008 we had about 12 cases, 2009 we had 5, and this year we've had 3 cases. And I think it is because there is a communication out there that there is a policy, there is women can seek redressal for these kind of harassment. So I think it's kind of prevented some of the stuff happening at the workplace.
You're saying it's coming down because people are aware that this will be dealt with and there is redressal.
Right. I think the communication is that in this policy, if a person is found guilty, it could lead to action up to termination. So people definitely see that the bank is taking it seriously. And while we don't share the case because obviously confidentiality and everything, but people do get to know. So people are on their best behavior at work.
There is a provision in the bill which that when pending an inquiry into a complaint of sexual harassment, the complainant, namely a woman according to the bill, can have either take leave or seek a transfer. Now, is that something that, how do you all manage or accommodate that?
Yeah, I think for an organization our size, we don't face such problems because you can always reallocate the person to another unit. But if the person is really uncomfortable,
so transfer easier.
Transfer would be easier, one. But if the person's really uncomfortable coming back to work, and we had one of these cases last year, we do give them leave with pay because it's unfortunate the person had to deal with that experience while while working with us.
According to the Supreme Court guidelines on the Vishakha case, sexual harassment is defined with 5 parameters, and that's the same thing that has been used in the bill to define what sexual harassment is. So everything from unwelcome physical contact or advances to sexually colored remarks. But does this accommodate for sexual discrimination? Because that's really different from sexual harassment, isn't it? And what has the experience been at Standard Chartered Bank?
No, you're right. This bill does not talk about sexual discrimination. So a woman, I think, can't take to this bill and raise an issue on sexual discrimination. But I think organizations today, at least the multinational organizations, are equal opportunity employers. So I don't think women face that problem really at the workplace.
When you look at human resources development and the area that you look after, it's a vast area. It goes from compensation to training to to managing interpersonal relationships, place under which I would imagine sexual harassment falls. How much of an issue are these changing gender dynamics and relations at the workplace? And I don't just mean sexual harassment, because that's the worst manifestation of it, isn't it?
No, I think as an HR professional, I do think that organizations need to be, now looking at this gender, differences very, very seriously because the workplace is changing. It's not just about gender; it's also about the younger generation coming in. So it's gender, the younger generation, and I mean there is a generation gap that we already see. So I think it's quite challenging, but quite interesting, really.
Madhavi, we need to take a break here, but we're going to come back and talk to you. So stay with us, and we're going to be discussing, amongst other things, this new trend of women's networks that organizations are setting up. What are their targets and what hope to achieve? We'll tell you when we come back. You're watching the Double X Factor here on CNBC TV 18. With gender diversity and inclusion the stated policy of most companies these days, women's networks are being set up within companies. The stated goal of these networks is to enhance the number of women in the workforce and also the number of women in leadership positions. To do this, they do everything from advocacy to mentoring to skill development workshops and seminars. Shweta Shriram and Mansi Fadnis find out what exactly these networks aim to achieve.
This week, the Interpublic Group, which owns ad agencies like Lolintas, McCann Erickson and Draft FCB, launched Equal and Opposite, the Indian chapter of its Global Women's Leadership Network. The aim is to create a level playing field for growth and to nurture women to take up leadership roles. Interestingly, at 34% of the workforce, the communications industry in India employs a larger number of women than most other industries. But despite that high number, the women who make it to senior management levels is just 11%.
Our women are really good. There's great amount of talent. They're educated, they're coming into the business, but in 3 or 4 years they drop out. And we are losing on a vital workforce that we can ill afford to lose on. So what could we do to retain them? And then that's when it came that to do something like this, it can't be the women alone. It has to be women and men working together.
In the past 2 to 3 years, many large companies, especially global ones, have set up such networks. Tech giant Google has women's leadership community, which gives senior executives a chance to discuss issues and ideas that will aid and abet gender diversity. This was launched in India last year. It has about 100 members who attend seminars and team building workshops that offer personal and professional growth.
It shows that we're interested in retaining and attracting female talent in the organization, and that makes us a stronger company because we'll be more diverse in how we lead and how we execute on our mission. And the second one is it's really connected women from all different functions in the organization, and as our company grows, having people have a personal relationship between engineering and sales and product and marketing has been actually very important to new initiatives.
Even though these networks are for the benefit of women, they are supported either directly or indirectly by the men in the organizations. Today, corporate India is recognizing that diversity fuels innovation and growth. So as more and more women benefit from such networks, so do the businesses they belong to.
Clearly, at the World Economic Forum in Davos, it was stated that women contribute to the economic growth. They have, in fact, in the last decade more than China did. And companies with more than 30% women employees outperform the others. So very clearly, here we're talking about a business benefit.
We have young people and more senior people who are here experiencing each other, talking, growing, and bonding as women. And those personal interactions are what makes us better leaders.
In countries like the UK and the USA, policies for gender diversity and inclusion are mandatory. Though that's not the case in India, networks for women are growing. And this is a sign that women are more determined than ever to break through the glass ceiling.
If you look at these women's networks, and we saw in that report what Google was doing, what IPG plans to do, and I know at Standard Chartered Bank you have a network for women. What are the tangible benefits? If let's say I was part of Standard Chartered Bank and I was part of the women's network, what are the tangible benefits? What will I get from a seminar and a workshop? Will it help me with a promotion? Will it help me get skills for a job which I might not have had earlier?
As I said earlier, we are an equal opportunity employer, so we don't actually do positive discrimination. But what women will get out of these networking and mentoring initiatives is access to the options that are available to them, and I guess the guidance that would not happen in many other organizations.
By setting up a women's network in an organization, isn't that positive discrimination?
Not really, because we have many men on that council as well, and it's not really to promote women over men or anything like that.
How much do you think the fact that women head the HR function, or a lot of women head HR functions across different organizations, impact the way women are treated or the workplace a woman gets?
I honestly don't think it makes a difference if you're a woman or a man in the HR function. I think you have to have the right kind of attitude and the right kind of connect with people to be a good HR person. So I wouldn't say a woman HR manager is better than a male HR manager. I wouldn't say that.
But the fact that there are so many more women at the heading the HR function, do you think that has made the workplace more suited to women, you think?
I would not be able to sort of say that with great confidence.
Okay, Madhavi, this is the double X factor where women say things that they really feel. So it was lovely meeting you.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
And with that, we're going to wrap up the show. We covered a lot of ground today. We hope to see you next week at the same time.